this adrenochrome has been infected intentionally with this virus by the White Hats? Or with something else? Something more lethal? To bring down the Cabal? Have the Cabal virus victims really been infected with Covid-19? Have the priests really died from it? Or were they executed for their pedophilic crimes? The corona infection, nothing but a distraction for the public? At this moment in time, I cannot wait any longer with the presentation of my research findings. All my lectures in March, April and May have been cancelled. By means of this documentary,
thank God,
I can still share my current findings with the world. What do I expect to happen? That which millions of QAnons have been yearning for over 2 years. Mass arrests, military tribunals, convictions at the highest level, financial reset, and perhaps the 10 days of darkness Q mentioned.
Yeah, no, sorry, that didn't happen.
Lockdown of countries, lockdown of the internet, no social media, so that the Cabal no longer knows what's coming and they cannot coordinate a possible escape.
Oh yeah, the internet and all the avenues of communication are going to be shut down just like China, so that the Cabal can't communicate with each other. Not like they don't have satellite phones and satellite communications, that they don't have backup communications, so that they're not the ones engineering all the social media shutdowns so that the truth cannot be spread between people, person to person.
When this happens, do not be afraid. Everything is going according to plan.
Yes, exactly, because QAnon and the plan is exactly the NWO agenda as fully outlined in my full documentary Inoculum of Truth on my channel. It shows the entire plan, and everything I said has come to pass. I was just being hyperbolic about the civil engineered war between, the great schism and the divide between the population, and I was just being overly hyperbolic about that, and then it freaking happened. I made my documentary before the riots and before the protests broke out, and yet my documentary was it predicted exactly those riots and even worse to come. That is the plan, and this is not something you should be rooting and cheering for.
Operation
You're cheering all the way to the camps. You're gonna be cheering once you're in camp.
Defender 20 is there to protect citizens against their corrupt governments that will spare no one in a final attempt to remain in power. I would not be surprised at all if we're told pretty soon that we cannot leave our homes any longer. My advice? Comply. In public places, idiots can open fire. At home, you're safe. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy your spring garden, the daffodils and the tulips, the beautiful singing of the birds. Everything will go on, just on a smaller scale. Q said, done in 30.
You're living in frickin' fairy tale, fantasy, delusional land. You think that all the inner city impoverished people, you think they have gardens with daffodils and singing birds and you think they even have families? Most of these people have nothing. They're homeless. You think they have gardens with daffodils and families? These people, their only loved ones have just died in their own piles of their own filthy diapers, of their own excrement in care facilities and care homes.
Yeah, this is horrific. Last Monday, my sister called me crying and very distraught. She'd been called by the retirement home where my father lived. They told her they'd found my father non-responsive and rushed him to the hospital. She wasn't allowed to go to the hospital yet, but they asked her if she could come clean his room while he was not there. And the woman says, we pay extra fee for that cleaning service. nervous. The sister gets there to find food and beverages all over his room with mold on it, stinking and rotting. She found his dirty Depends diapers everywhere, under the bed, the couch, the bathroom. She spent half the day cleaning this mess while crying. Following day, the doctor calls her saying there was nothing they could do, and since he was terminal, now she could come and visit. She was never able to have a coherent conversation with him the whole week, and he passed a week later. Since this whole nonsense started, all she could do is stand in the parking lot while he peeked out the window of his third-story window, and she'd say, "How's everything?" and he'd respond, "Fine." She couldn't see the mess in his room. He wasn't eating and he was withering away, something she would have noticed if she were able to visit him as usual. The residents in the home went from a routine of going to the cafeteria 3 times a day and eating and socializing with friends, and eating their favorite foods. In this particular case, the woman's father didn't have teeth, so they would give him soft eggs and juice and soup and mashed potatoes. He socialized with friends and spent time on the patio. And then one day he was in prison, confined to a small room for months. He got too lonely to cope with this and he gave up and stopped eating. And they were bringing him coffee that he doesn't drink in the first place and fruits he couldn't chew, while lying in his own waste in a room full of rotting food and filled Depends diapers all over, under the bed, under the couch, and on the floor. And people criticize me for calling these people nitwits and criminals who do this. Really? I'm criticizing you. I want a person who can defend this. Come here and please talk to me about it. Tell me what the defense is of this.
My advice? Comply. At home, you're safe. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy your spring garden, the daffodils and the tulips, the beautiful singing of the birds.
These people have nothing left. They've died alone and watched their loved ones isolated. Their children in mental handicapped care facilities literally committing suicide because they didn't know what happened to, why they can't see their parents. People committing suicide, drug overdoses on a massive scale that has never been witnessed.
So I had just happened to stumble across this report that is just came out that New Jersey has just passed a legal statute that will medically facilitate and assist you in basically in government sanctioned suicide, so and COVID-related suicides. So if you are struggling from, the conditions by losing your loved ones, watching them die isolated from dementia in piles of their own dirty diapers in care facilities, or if you've lost your entire life's career, your entire life savings, if you lost your home, your entire life's work, because everyone forced you into lockdown and wouldn't let you come out for freedom of pursuit of happiness, of life, liberty, and the ability to work. If any of these things have affected you, New Jersey will assist you in committing suicide to get you out of here, because they don't want you around.
Mass famine, mass poverty, mass death on a scale that we've never before witnessed in human history. And you think that this is daffodils and gardens and singing birds going on in these inner cities. You're delusional. This is evil. This is an evil plan that you are advocating for. This is all evil. This is pure genocide. And you're rooting for it all the way to camp, all the way to the gas chambers. You're going to be cheering for it, singing louder so that you can't hear the screams.
So there's some models that suggest that if you go down that path of basically lockdown, you may need to wait for 18 months. And I'm extremely worried about that scenario. I'm not sure that our world, our civilization could survive that. I think that there is not just millions of lives at stake, which is the pessimistic scenarios about SARS-CoV-2. It is billions of lives who might be at stake if we have to protract that for so long.
My advice? Comply. At home, you're safe. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy your spring garden, the daffodils and the tulips, the beautiful singing of the birds.
If we shut everyone in their house, it is a solution. If we manage to even isolate everyone, not even being in touch with any other person, in theory, we are containing the spread of the virus. So as you realize, this is very difficult to do. It has lots of consequences. And for a society like ours, it means that very soon you will start seeing a major impact on the economy. We already see that. If the economy is ruined, you have unemployment, you have poverty, you have bankruptcies, you have lots of diseases that are associated with this sort of social and economic disruption. We have strong evidence that can lead to an increase in depression, in anxiety, in suicides, in heart attacks, in common things, in things that cumulatively could have a much higher impact on deaths compared to what SARS-CoV-2 can achieve on its own.
Remind yourselves of what the Office for National Statistics graph looked like, very, very similar, looking pretty horrendous in terms of excess mortality. And the point that we were making is that if you actually put a line...
So if y'all actually think that QAnon is the group responsible behind that has orchestrated all of this nonsense, all of this mass crimes against humanity, the biggest crime that has ever been committed on the face of this planet, the mass famines, the mass suicides, the mass poverty, the greatest transfer of wealth into the 1%, and the greatest diminishing of wealth, between the greater schism between the haves and have-nots. If you think that QAnon is responsible for all of this, then QAnon is evil. QAnon is the deep state. QAnon is the Illuminati. If QAnon is responsible for all of these what will be billions of deaths by the time this is all said and done and this is all over, QAnon is the most evil organization, the most evil influence that I have ever witnessed on the face of this planet. And that's what I was calling out and warning you about from day one. The very first time I ever heard Jordan Slather open his mouth about this complete crime, this psychological operation of delusion. It's now you understand why I've been so pissed about it for years, this entire time. Is because I saw all of this coming way beforehand. I knew that it was calling for military and boots on the streets to exterminate the left. I knew it, and now they're doing it. You should have seen these QAnon groups during the riots. They were calling for the military to go out and literally exterminate all the left. They want it. They're still they're foaming at the mouth if you go and read all the comments in those groups.
On this graph, which shows the deaths which are attributed to COVID-19, that it's significantly below the total excess mortality. So we're making this point on Wednesday. Therefore, the shaded area represents the lockdown deaths, about 50% of the total deaths since week 13.
So potentially deaths that could be attributed to the lockdown itself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I would not be surprised at all if we're told pretty soon that we cannot leave our homes any longer. My advice? Comply. In public places, idiots can open fire. At home, you're safe. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy your spring garden, the daffodils and the tulips, the beautiful singing of the birds. Everything will go on.
But actually, that's only if you take into account if you believe that the Office for National Statistics results or statistics are showing genuine COVID-19 deaths, or whether what's actually happening here is that people are being given attribution of COVID-19 when in fact they're dying of other things. I'm not blaming the Office for National Statistics about that. I'm suggesting that this is a result of the government policy about how attribution of death is made. And so what we said was, well, if you look at what Italy did, where they went back and reviewed their statistics, and they discovered that only 12% of the that had been given the COVID-19 attribution actually had died, or the COVID-19 could be shown to be a cause of death, then in fact What this graph might look like is more like this, in which case that red shaded area becomes the number of excess deaths which could be attributed to lockdown.
If that means 30 days, this exciting phase will end on good foot.
This exciting phase! Lady, if you heard the stories that Dr. Popper is reading from her emails on her channel, that Dr. Pam Popper is reading every single day of the week, the anecdotal stories of people's
going on around the world. Police in Kenya gave their sincere condolences after a 13-year-old boy was shot and killed on his balcony in Nairobi as police moved through the neighborhood enforcing a coronavirus curfew. They come in screaming and beating us like cows, and we're law-abiding citizens, said Hussein Moyo, the father of Yasin, the boy who was shot. Think about that for a minute. Migrant workers in India crouched on the side of the road as they were sprayed with chemicals in order to disinfect them before they entered their home province. They were covered in a bleaching agent, sodium hypochlorite, which can cause damage to the skin, eyes, and lungs. That's a good way to treat people. In Punjab, people accused of breaking quarantine rules were made to do squats while chanting, "We're enemies of society, we cannot sit at home." Police in Paraguay made people violating quarantine rules do star jumps and were threatened with a taser. Others were asked to repeat, "I won't leave my house again, officer," while lying face down on the floor. Videos of the punishments in Paraguay, recorded and shared by the officers themselves, were praised by the country's interior minister, who said, "I congratulate them. I don't have the same creativity as those making the videos." In the Paraguayan capital, Alberto Ruiz, a member of a resident social organization in the deprived Tacumbu neighborhood, told The Guardian that authorities had done very little to support families left without any income. Almost all citizens in the country are confined to their homes. They tell you to stay at home to protect your family, but in poor neighborhoods, you have to go out to earn a living, and if you don't, you die of hunger. In the Philippines, police and local officials trapped curfew violators in dog cages, while others were forced to sit in midday sun as punishment. This is a good way to treat people. Great moments in public health. In the port city of Mombasa, Kenya, police fired tear gas at ferry commuters, causing hundreds of people crowded together to cough and wipe tears from their eyes. Officers were also filmed hitting people with batons. Quote, "If the operation was supposed to protect people from spreading the virus, the operation achieved exactly the opposite." That came from a police reforms working group. This article from which I took this information said there are fears that governments are using concerns over the pandemic to increase their own powers. That's what I've been talking about, bringing in sweeping legislation that could be used to quash critical voices. On Monday, Hungary's parliament issued a new set of measures, including jail terms for spreading misinformation and allowing the nationalist prime minister to rule by decree under a state of emergency that has no clear time limit. He really is now the king of Hungary. In the Philippines and Thailand, states of emergency have been declared, granting governments greater powers for a temporary period. This includes the ability to crack down on the sharing of false information, a vague term that activists fear could be misused by officials. And you might remember I did a story I reported a few weeks ago in Hungary that they were actually arresting people for putting posts on Facebook, opinions on Facebook. You know, that's so, I don't know, one of these days they'll probably come in here and haul me off to a camp coming to a place near you.
Families, their mothers, their wives, their children dying alone in isolation, in care facilities, in hospitals, in nursing homes, around the country, isolated even just in their own homes. Now we're about to witness the world's largest evictions, the world's largest wave of homelessness. And then after those people all go homeless, what happens after that? They all either die or they go to jail. Or worse, they get shipped off to camp, to extermination re-education camps. That's what's coming. My film, Inoculum of Truth, blows your garbage film out of the water, and I actually cite real science, real published evidence, real published research, not screenshots of Twitter and news articles and memes from social media.
Today, April 10.
It's going to be this exciting time of mass deaths and mass poverty and mass famines. What a brilliant plan! Woo! Wee! Yes! We're saved! All you people who have just witnessed all of your family completely destroyed and isolated. Woo! Yes!
Realize that this is a unique time in the history of mankind. The time when the suppression of the people that has been going on for thousands of years will come to an end. This is the liberation of the people. This is the transition to a new earth, the 1,000-year kingdom of peace, the new Jerusalem on earth, as described in all ancient sacred texts.
What? The New Jerusalem was described in all the ancient religions other than Judaism and Christianity. No, what this is, lady, is this is the new world order. This is the one world order, is what is being established here. Is a one world digital 5G Internet of Things smart grid of social identity, of digital identity, digital persona, digital slavery, digital slave labor. Digitized human speculative commodities of cryptocurrency, cashless society, no bodily freedom. You've already lost your bodily choice, your bodily freedom with the enforced masks, and now your bodily functions are fair game for absolutely anything coming down the line.
You are witnessing it, so enjoy to the fullest.
Enjoy the mass deaths and the mass suicides and the mass drug overdoses and the mass epidemic of poverty and famine that is now just beginning, hasn't even begun to hit yet. The world's largest genocide, it's an extinction level event, folks, is what they are planning here, is what they have engineered, is what is fully unfolding right before our eyes.
There'll be a time where you could say to your grandchildren, I was there. I lived it. God, it was so suspenseful.
You won't be around to say that because you will already have been exterminated at camp because you're welcoming all of this and saying, enjoy it. Comply and stay at home. Stay at home while everybody commits suicide and massacres themselves from their businesses going under and their marriages, and most people have domestic violence and domestic abuse is on a scale that we've never witnessed before, from people being locked down with their pedophile families and their pedophile abusive child trafficking rings, and all of these households that are satanic ritual abuse households that are all over the rural areas of the United States, all over the rural areas of the world, and even in densely populated areas like Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York. I mean, these are the statistics, folks. The statistics and the evidence simply shows this, not some wild-ass, delusional, UFO alien conspiracy fantasy.
We had no idea what a wonderful world was awaiting us.
And so again, my name is Cullen Smith. This is Lifting the Veil. You can find all of my full books, presentations, videos, films, articles, posts at patreon.com/liftingtheveil. And there is also a ton of exclusive content, and I will leave the cited reference links in the description down below. So you can check that out for all of my full content, and I will see you guys in the next video. I rely solely on word of mouth, and the recommended algorithms are not recommending any of my videos or films anymore. My channel has literally been completely restricted, so I rely on your help by sharing my work around if you appreciate it, and leave me your comments. I definitely want to know what you have to share and what you have to think about all of this stuff, and I will see you in the next video.